Pompeii, once a vibrant resort city located south of ancient Rome, lay along the Italian coast under the looming presence of Mount Vesuvius, an active volcano. The city's most infamous eruption occurred in 79 AD, engulfing Pompeii in a dense layer of volcanic ash. As one observer described, the dust swept over the land like a deluge, plunging the city into a darkness resembling the black of closed and unlit rooms. The catastrophe claimed the lives of 2,000 inhabitants and left the city abandoned for nearly 2 millennia. When explorers stumbled upon the site in 1748, they were astonished to discover that, beneath the heavy shroud of ash and debris, Pompeii was remarkably well preserved. The structures, artifacts, and human remains found within the buried city have provided invaluable insights into daily life in the ancient world. Where is Pompeii? Pompeii, situated on Italy's west coast along the Bay of Naples, south of present-day Naples, was initially integrated into the Hellenistic world by Greek settlers in the 8th century BC. Although it maintained a degree of autonomy, Pompeii came under Roman influence in the 2nd century BC, and the picturesque Bay of Naples soon became a favored retreat for Rome's affluent citizens who admired the scenic Campania coastline. By the early 1st century AD, Pompeii, located roughly 5 miles from Mount Vesuvius, had blossomed into a popular resort for the Roman Empire's elite. The town featured grand houses and opulent villas, adorned with intricate artworks and shimmering fountains lining its well-paved streets. Pompeii's prosperity largely stemmed from its fertile volcanic soil, making the area a hub for olives, grapes, and other crops. Pompeian wine was highly prized and found its way into the finest Roman households. The town was bustling with activity as tourists, residents, and enslaved people frequented its small factories, artisan shops, taverns, cafes, brothels, and bathhouses. The 20,000-seat amphitheater drew crowds for entertainment, while people also socialized in the open-air squares and bustling marketplaces. On the eve of the devastating eruption in 79 AD, it is estimated that Pompeii had a population of about 12,000, with nearly as many inhabitants in the surrounding areas. Mount Vesuvius. Mount Vesuvius didn't appear suddenly. It is part of the Campanian volcanic arc that has been active for millennia. Situated at the convergence of the African and Eurasian tectonic plates on the Italian peninsula, Vesuvius has a long history of eruptions. Around 1995 BC, Vesuvius experienced a particularly violent eruption, now known as the Avellino eruption. This cataclysmic event expelled millions of tons of superheated lava, ash, and rocks, propelling them about 22 miles into the sky. The eruption decimated nearly every village, house, and farm within a 15-mile radius of the volcano. The inhabitants of the region had grown accustomed to living with their volatile neighbor, even after a massive earthquake struck the Campania region in 63 AD, which scientists now recognize as a precursor to the impending disaster. People continued to flock to the Bay of Naples, and Pompeii became increasingly crowded. Pompeii Eruption. 16 years following the significant earthquake in either August or October of 79 AD, a series of small tremors shook the Pompeii area. The residents, accustomed to frequent seismic activity in Campania, paid little heed to these quakes. According to the writer and eyewitness Pliny the Younger, these tremors were not particularly alarming because they are frequent in Campania. However, shortly after noon on that fateful day, Mount Vesuvius erupted with tremendous force. The explosion sent a massive column of ash, rock, and scalding volcanic gases high into the atmosphere, visible from hundreds of miles away. Pliny the Younger, observing the eruption from across the Bay of Naples, described this cloud of unusual size and appearance, as resembling a pine tree that rose to a great height on a sort of trunk and then split off into branches. Today, geologists classify this type of volcanic explosion as a Plinian eruption. As the towering plume began to cool, debris started to fall back to Earth. First, the fine-grained ash, followed by lighter pumice and other rocks. Although the scene was terrifying, I believed I was perishing with the world, Pliny recounted, and the world with me. It was not immediately deadly. Most residents of Pompeii had ample time to escape, and many did. Herculaneum and Pompeii. For those who remained in Pompeii, Herculaneum, and nearby towns, the situation deteriorated rapidly. As the ash continued to fall, it filled the air, making breathing increasingly difficult. Buildings began to collapse under the weight of the accumulating ash, yet some residents still chose to stay, now surrounded by several feet of ash. On the following morning, disaster struck again. A pyroclastic flow, a deadly, fast-moving surge of superheated gas and pulverized rock traveling at 100 miles per hour, swept down the mountain, incinerating everything and everyone in its path. By the time the eruption ceased on the second day, Pompeii was entombed under millions of tons of volcanic ash. A few people returned to search for lost relatives or belongings, but there was little left to salvage. Pompeii, along with Herculaneum and numerous villas in the area, was abandoned and forgotten for centuries. Pompeii Bodies. Approximately 2,000 residents of Pompeii perished in the eruption, with the total death toll reaching up to 16,000 across Pompeii, Herculaneum, and surrounding areas. The bodies of men, women, children, and animals were found exactly where they had fallen, often clutching valuable household items they had hoped to save. Many were discovered in poignant positions, with arms wrapped around loved ones. Archaeologists later unearthed jars of preserved fruit and loaves of bread. Most of Pompeii's buildings remained intact, and the streets were still littered with everyday objects and household goods. The fine volcanic ash that covered Pompeii had acted as a remarkable preservative. Pompeii Exhibit. Pompeii remained largely undisturbed until 1748, when explorers in search of ancient artifacts began excavations in Campania. They discovered that the layers of ash had preserved the city remarkably well. Pompeii appeared almost exactly as it had nearly 2,000 years prior. Many scholars believe that the excavation of Pompeii played a significant role in the neoclassical revival of the 18th century. Europe's elite displayed art and reproductions of objects from the ruins, and architectural drawings of Pompeii influenced the design trends of the period. For instance, affluent British families often constructed Etruscan rooms inspired by the villas of Pompeii. Today, numerous preserved artworks, frescoes, and artifacts are exhibited at the Pompeii Antiquarium, situated among the city's ruins. Excavations of Pompeii, which have been ongoing for nearly 3 centuries, continue to this day. The entire site has been designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Scholars and tourists alike remain captivated by the city's haunting ruins and the artifacts and bodies entombed on that tragic day over 2,000 years ago, much as they were in the 18th century. Many disasters have befallen the world, wrote the German philosopher-poet Goethe after visiting Pompeii's ruins in the 1780s, but few have brought posterity so much joy.